Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Gaming with the JD. This is the JD, and once again, this is another non-gaming video, but rather an iMovie presentation, if we're getting real here. But not just any kind of iMovie presentation. What I'm going to be doing, is starting a new, non-gaming series on this channel because I need, some new stuff. And this is kind of a prelude. I'm sorry, not a prelude. A continuation of my 2021 returns video. And this is kind of the start of a new series that I'd like to call the JD's Unofficial Rankings. And in this series, I'm going to be ranking, a lot of things, and a lot of things, whether it be like top 10, like celebrities or pay-per-view events or wrestlers, video games, whatever it may be, right? And I say unofficial rankings because, I can never really decide where these rankings go. So, yeah, the JD's Unofficial Rankings, episode 1 starts now. And for this first episode, I'm going to be ranking the big 4 AEW pay-per-views. Of course, and not in any specific order. But here we go. All right, first up is AEW Revolution. Now, this is obviously what I like to call AEW's, lead up to spring, their tradition. This is the tradition as far as when it comes to spring is coming for AEW. And obviously we have had, 2 very great AEW Revolution events. Obviously AEW Revolution 2020, the first Revolution event of its kind, gave us a hell of a card that night. Pitting Orange Cassidy versus Pac. We saw Jon Moxley versus Chris Jericho for the world title. We saw a hell of a tag team match between the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega, and so many great matches. Whereas the year after, we saw great matches between Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega, the exploding barbed wire death match, even though, that barbed wire didn't explode. I mean, Jon Moxley said it best, Kenny Omega can't build, an explosion for shit or whatever it was. Needless to say, both Revolution events were really, really cool. I mean, Revolution 2021 gave us, Sting back inside the ring for the first time in a long time. Well, actually, sorry, not in the ring, but his first cinematic match, and in a way, he basically returned to competing. We also got the debut of Christian Cage that night at AEW Revolution 2021, and a lot of unforgettable stuff too. So yeah, first up on the list of the JD's Unofficial Rankings, AEW Revolution. All right, next up, Full Gear. Obviously, guys, Full Gear, as you know, Full Gear 2021 is this Saturday, November the 13th on pay-per-view from the Target Center in Minneapolis. Now, like I said, this is my unofficial rankings list. I can never pick what goes where. But yeah, Full Gear up next. Obviously, I was very, very humbled, honored, and blessed to be around for, the latest Full Gear events. I mean, what started in 2019, we obviously saw a hell of a night. Full Gear 2019, we obviously saw, great matches such as Cody Rhodes versus Chris Jericho for the AEW World Championship. It was a hell of a match, especially on Chris Jericho's birthday that year. And of course, the main event that night, Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega in the non-sanctioned Lights Out match, and so many other great matches that night. But also, the year after, we got to see some more great matches for Full Gear 2020, pitting Hangman Adam Page versus Kenny Omega in the AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament Finals. That was a hell of a match. Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin for the TNT Championship. The Young Bucks finally winning the AEW World Tag Team Championships. The Elite Deletion between Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara, which also saw and gave us great cameo appearances by Gangrel and the Hurricane, Shane Helms. And of course, the main event that night, Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston in an I Quit match, a very historic I Quit match, an unforgettable I Quit match for the AEW World Championship. And I know for sure that AEW Full Gear this year will most definitely deliver, because we've got matches like CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston, Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page once again, but this time for the world title, and Miro versus Bryan Danielson. Full Gear, without a doubt, is going to be wild this weekend. And as Frank Kazarian once said, let's kick this motherfucker into Full Gear. All right, next up, we go from Full Gear to Double or Nothing. And truly, this is my number one favorite AEW pay-per-view of all time. I mean, of course, a lot of these big four pay-per-views are great and all, but I don't think you can get any better than Double or Nothing. Of course, I'm not going to discredit all the other AEW pay-per-views, but still, Double or Nothing is my number one favorite because, you know, I really love the theme of it. It's like a Vegas-like, casino-like event. And I know the last two Double or Nothing shows haven't been in Vegas since 2 years ago, but that was all because of this stupid fucking pandemic, you know. But Double or Nothing was obviously AEW's very first pay-per-view event, and 3 years in a row. 2019, we got a hell of a pay-per-view event, Double or Nothing. Like I said, it was the first of its kind, and we got to see great matches that night, such as Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes, and of course Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega in the main event. You know, all those matches were great, just to name a few. But of course, the debut of Jon Moxley. How could we forget? You know, it was a hell of an event, no doubt about it. But also, Double or Nothing 2020, later on, you know, the year after, we got to see, you know, great matches like Cody Rhodes versus Lance Archer, where Cody became the first TNT champion, and the baddest man on the planet, Mike Tyson, was right there to raise his arm and watch the whole match. And also, we got to see Jon Moxley versus Brody Lee in a hell of a match for the world title. And unfortunately, what was Brody Lee's last pay-per-view match, it sucks that Brody is no longer with us, and I wish he was still alive. But that match was really, really good, as well as the first Stadium Stampede match of its kind, pitting the Elite against the Inner Circle. It was a hell of a match. We saw the Elite come out victorious that night, and as if the tradition couldn't get any better, the year after, we saw, you know, Double or Nothing 2021. We saw great moments like Jungle Boy winning the Casino Battle Royale. That right there was pretty much for me like the rise of Jungle Boy, if you will. And then we also got to see, you know, Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston challenge the Young Bucks for the World Tag Team titles in a hell of a match. The AEW World Championship triple threat between Kenny Omega, Pac, and Orange Cassidy. And for the second year in a row, Stadium Stampede, but this time it's the Pinnacle versus Inner Circle. And truly, I do believe Double or Nothing was a huge success the last 3 years. And here's to Double or Nothing 2022. All right, last but most certainly not least on the list is All Out, the prelude, the precursor, if you will, to the revolution, the start of the revolution that is All Elite Wrestling, AEW, baby. Well, of course, not this event, but the spin-off. Well, of course, the original event, I should say, All In 2018. All Out is basically the spin-off of it. But we've had All Out for 3 consecutive years, and let's start with 2019. We got great matches, just to name a few, such as the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Bros, Escalera de la Muerte, which also gave us the debut of Proud and Powerful, Santana and Ortiz. And also the main event that night, we saw Hangman Adam Page versus Chris Jericho for the vacant AEW World title. And of course, that night, we saw Chris Jericho crowned the new AEW World Heavyweight Champion, the first ever AEW champion. But let's fast forward to the year after that. All Out 2020 gave us great matches, just to name a few again, such as Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara in a Broken Rules match. We also saw Mimosa Mayhem pitting Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy, which saw Orange Cassidy defeat Chris Jericho, and as a result, Chris now lying in a bath of mimosa. And also our main event that night, Jon Moxley versus MJF for the world title. And thankfully that night we saw Jon Moxley retain the AEW World Championship. But now, let's fast forward to AEW All Out 2021, just this most recent one, giving us great matches like Moxley versus Kojima, and which also saw the debut of Minoru Suzuki. Who would have thought? And also the steel cage match for the World Tag Team titles, pitting the Young Bucks against the Lucha Brothers, not to mention the AEW debut of the beautiful Ruby Soho, and like it says on the back of her jacket, Destination AEW. But also, what about the final fight, pitting Chris Jericho and MJF against each other, in which if Chris Jericho lost, he would have had to retire, but thankfully he won and did not have to retire. And then we saw the best in the world, CM Punk, make his long-awaited return to the ring for the first time in 7 fucking years, and take on Darby Allin in a very good match. Not to mention, guys, the main event of All Out, Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega. You know, I had the pleasure of watching that match and even the whole event. And it was a hell of a match, like I said. What went down was very, very crazy. Not to mention, guys, AEW All Out 2021 gave us very big debuts, like I said earlier. Minoru Suzuki, Ruby Soho, but not to mention Adam Cole, baby, and Bryan fucking Danielson. The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole, baby, debuting in AEW on the same night. And who would have thought, you know? Because, you know, so much happened All Out that night. It was a hell of a pay-per-view event, and it probably might just be AEW's biggest event of 2021 to date, no doubt about it. So, yeah. And there you have it, folks. You know, those are my unofficial rankings. Episode 1, AEW pay-per-views. And I want to thank y'all again so much for watching. I will have more videos like these on the way, you know, just so you guys know it's not all about gaming. Trust me, it's more than that. But thank y'all again so much for watching, and stay safe and healthy out there, and check out AEW Full Gear this Saturday on pay-per-view.